So welcome students. This is Associate Professor Jaydeep Manocha, Department of Information Technology, Arya College of Engineering and Information Technology, Jaipur. The lecture is for final year Information Technology branch. We are in continuation with unit number 1. The topic that is to be covered in this e-lecture is black box testing. In last e-lecture we covered white box testing in detail. So let us start with black box testing. So basically, when we talk about black box testing, and I know that all of you are aware about the basic of this kind of testing, as you have studied about this topic in your previous classes. So let us define shortly. Basically, black box test is convenient because they use the complete finished product and do not require any knowledge or any kind of construction of the project. So black box testing is done without the knowledge of the internal of the system. That means we consider that our system is a black box. We are giving inputs, and if we are getting the desired outputs, then it's okay. And if we are not getting the desired outputs, then there is an error. That means the result is to be taken for testing. So when we go for black box testing, then our first question is why? Basically, it is based on requirements. It addresses the stated requirements as well as implied requirements. There are two types of requirements, implied and stated, and it addresses the both. The black box testing encompasses the end user perspectives. Black box testing handles valid and invalid inputs. So a lot of reasons are there that we consider black box testing. So let us see that how we can do the black box testing. So when we talk about how, then there are various techniques. You can see on this slide: requirement based positive and negative boundary value analysis, that is BVA, decision tables, equivalence partitioning, state based compatibility, user documentation, and domains. So let us take each and every technique one by one into account. The first is requirement based testing. Basically, requirement testing deals with the validating the requirements given in the SRS, that is Software Requirement Specification document. So, as you have studied in the previous lecture, that not all the requirements are explicitly stated. Some of the requirements are there, those are implied or implicit. That means automatically the requirements are there. These are not user defined. So explicit requirements are stated and document as a part of the requirement specification, but there are some requirements, those are implied and implicit requirements that are not documented but assumed to be incorporated with the system. So when we talk about these kind of requirements, then precondition of the requirement testing is a detailed review of the requirement specification. Requirement review ensures that everything is consistent, correct, complete, or testable. So this is the requirement based testing, in which basically a requirement specification for the log and key examples. That means there are the requirements that we have to log. That means these requirements 100% should be fulfilled, must be fulfilled. But some are the requirements, those are the key for these kind of requirements. So in this kind of requirement based testing, what we will be doing, we will be basically creating a particular identifier for each and every kind of requirement. We will see that this requirement is high, medium, or low. That means we will decide a priority for it, and we will be also giving the description. Let's say I am writing BR01 is a requirement identifier, and the description of that requirement is inserting the key numbered 123 to 456 and turning it clockwise should facilitate locking. That means we are considering the example of locking. Okay, so this kind of table when we will be preparing. After that, we will going for a sample requirements traceability matrix, that with the available resources, how much requirements are basically available or traced. So when we go for requirement based testing, then we can perform two major things to get a optimal result, that first is we have to identify the requirement with a proper description, and we have to give a priority to the requirement. After that, we will be preparing a requirement traceability matrix. This matrix is very valuable, and what it will be giving, doesn't matter how many requirements are there. Basically, each of the requirements has to be tested. So when there are large number of requirements, this requirement traceability matrix, that means RTM, is very important. After that, we will prioritize. We will put some test condition. We can make group of test conditions, and these test conditions can be used as inputs to arrive at a size or effort, or any kind of further technique like schedule estimation of tests. So what these things are going to give us, that means whatever we are preparing, this RTM, that is requirement based traceability matrix, in which we are assigning priorities, we are preparing test cases. So what will be the result of it? That means when we go for requirement based tests, the product's compliance to the requirements specification will be granted. That means the product compliance towards the requirements will be checked properly. This will be the result of requirement based testing. Now let us consider the next is positive and negative testing. Positive testing basically tries to prove that a given product does what it's supposed to do. When a test case verifies the requirements of the product with a set of expected outputs, then it is called a positive test case. The purpose of positive testing is to prove the product works as per specification and expectations. A product delivering an error when it is expected to give an error is part of positive testing also. So basically it tries to prove that the product available to us is doing the same thing that is supposed to do. And when we talk about the negative testing, it is done to show that the product does not fail when an unexpected thing is coming, or an unexpected input is given. The next type of technique is known as boundary value analysis. Very, very important thing. Basically, when we talk about boundary value analysis, then we have to consider a lot of things. As you know that conditions are there, boundaries are there in the software development. These are two major things, major sources of defects in a software product. So we take two things, conditions and boundaries, in boundary value analysis. Okay, so basically this is addressed, or this technique is taken into account, or this method is taken into account because it is useful for arriving at tests that are effective in catching defects that happen at boundaries. Boundary value analysis basically believes and extends the concept that the density of a defect is more towards the boundaries. This is the major concept on which BVA is based. So BVA is useful to generate test cases when the input or either the output data is made up of clearly identifiable boundaries or ranges. That means if boundaries are not there, ranges are not there, we cannot take this test. Okay, so concerned with conditions and boundaries only. Next we can take the next techniques is decision tables. As we know that basically the use of conditions is reflected in decision tables in testing. So what decision tables are going to give us? What is the beauty of this? Basically, students, when we consider many cases of software testing, then many additional factors are also there, like whether the various decision variables and conditions are working properly or not. If they are working properly, then okay, and if they are not working properly, then what action should be there? So for the same, we take decision tables. Decision table is basically a listing of the various decision variables, conditions, values or assumed values, and the actions to take in each combination of the conditions. So these variables basically contribute to the decisions and listed as columns of that tables. So when we prepare a decision table, we have a lot of advantages. Before taking the advantages into account, I'll go for the steps in forming a decision table. You can see the 4 points here: variables, values, combination, and actions. So first we have to identify the decision variables. We have to identify the possible values. After that, we can make the combination of these things, and after that we have to set some actions if our desired things are not there. So this is about decision tables. When you will be making a decision table, it will be useful when input and output data can be expressed as Boolean conditions. That means true, false, or don't care conditions that you have learned in your digital electronics. So once a decision table is formed, each row of the table acts as the specification for one test case. Identification of the decision variables makes these tests can be cases extensive if not exhaustive. So decision tables are basically working on the Boolean logic, as I have clearly explained this thing on the whiteboard in the class to you, so you can understand what I am saying, that decision tables are properly Boolean related. Okay, so even we also include the don't care conditions in it. So this is again one kind of technique, that is black box. Next is equivalence partitioning. Basically, it is a software testing technique that involves identifying a small set of representative input values that produce as many different output conditions as possible. Basically, it reduces the number of permutations and combinations of input-output values used for testing, therefore thereby increasing the coverage and reducing the effort involved in testing. So basically, when we have set of input values that will generate one single expected output, this output will be known as a partition. Okay, and when the behavior of the software is the same for a set of values, then this set is termed as an equivalence class or partition. So students, in this case, one representative sample for each partition, also called the member of the equivalence class, is picked up for testing. Okay, so that's why it is known as equivalence partitioning. So as you know that in class I have given you example of life insurance premium rates for the same. So you go with that example for the same. Next one is our state-based testing, which is also known as graph testing, and it is basically useful where we have some situations like the product under test is let's say a language processor, let's say a compiler. Okay, then wherein the syntax of the language automatically lands itself to a state machine or a context-free grammar. Okay, that means theory of computation basics are there. Then this is useful when we are modeling about some workflow, data flow. Then state-based or graph-based testing is very much important, and the states from one point to another point can be easily judged by this kind of testing. So basically, graph-based testing methods are applicable to generate test cases for state machines only, language processors, workflows, transition flows, and data flows. Okay. Next, we can say the compatibility testing. Students, the testing that we are doing to ensure that the product features are working properly, correctly, or consistently with different infrastructure components is known as compatibility testing. So in compatibility testing, basically what parameters we are going to test? There are many parameters like processor, architecture, and characteristics of the machine. What are the resources like RAM, disk space, network card? What are the equipments? What is the OS? That means Windows is there, Linux is there, or any variant is there. Middle tier infrastructure components, that means server, application server, network server, like backend components are also considered like database servers. If we are using Oracle, we are using Sybase. So these are the points. That means we are going to check the compatibility of the product for different components, different infrastructures. Okay. Then if our product is compatible for many or as desired platforms, processor, architectures, OSs, then our compatibility is very good. So there is a basic technique for compatibility testing. Basically, we create a compatibility matrix. Basically, compatibility matrix, as I told you in the class, has its columns, various parameters, the combination of which have to be tested. Okay, then each row of that table basically represents a unique combination of specific set of values of the parameters. Okay, we can take horizontal combinations into account, we can take the other kind of combinations also into account. So compatibility testing basically tests the components on different types of infrastructure. Last one is your user documentation testing, and as it is very much clear that it is related to manuals, your guidelines, your installation process, your release notes, and online help that you are going to provide to your customers. So this is very much beneficial because user documentation testing aids in highlighting problems overlooked during reviews. And okay, high quality user documentation will ensure consistency of the documentation and product, that will minimize the possible defects and results in less difficult support calls. That means if documentation is proper, solutions are there, then calls will be less by the customers. Okay, new programmers and testers can easily read out the documentation, and then there will be no need of direct or continuous touch with the customer. In case of very emergency, they will contact the company. So customers need less training and can process more quickly to advanced training and product uses if the documentation, manuals, release notes, online help, installation guide is very much clear and very much super. Okay, so this is a kind of testing which is basically sophisticating the users of the product. One more is there, that is your domain testing. Basically, it exploits the tester's domain knowledge to test suitability of the product to what the users do on a typical day. That means on a particular moment or time or day, what the users are doing. This is the basically domain, and it basically relates to the tester. It is the ability to design and execute test cases that relate to the people who will buy your product, who will use your software. It will help you to understand the problems they are trying to solve and the ways in which they are using the software to solve the problems. It is also characterized by how well an individual test engineer understands the operation of the system and the business processes that system is supposed to support. So we can see there are a lot of techniques related to black box testing. Again, I repeat: requirement based, positive and negative, BVA, that is boundary value analysis, decision tables, equivalence and partitioning, state based, compatibility, user documentation testing, and domain testing. So this is all about black box testing. In our next e-lecture, we are going to take a new topic. Till then, thank you.